Today we'll be doing back bends, and before we get started, there's a few things that I just want to go over, so let's get into it. So the spine consists of 4 different areas: the cervical vertebrae, the thoracic vertebrae, the lumbar vertebrae, and the sacrococcygeal. The cervical vertebrae and lumbar vertebrae naturally has an arch, so we don't want to focus our back bends in these areas because that can lead to overarching, which can lead to injuries. Instead, we want to focus our back bends in the mid to upper back, which is also known as the thoracic vertebrae. And you'll hear a lot of cues like lift the sternum, roll the shoulder blades down the spine. This helps to protect the lower back. Also, when doing back bends, we want to strengthen and lengthen the areas surrounding the spine. So that includes the core, the shoulder blades, the pelvis, the hamstrings, the glutes. All these areas work to help open the back in a healthy way. So today we're going to need like a block-like thing. I'm using a stack of napkins. Whatever you have works. We're going to begin with pelvic tilt, so take your block and bring it towards the ceiling. On your inhale, you're going to arch the back and reach your arms above head. Exhale, flatten the back and lift the arms back to the ceiling. This helps to teach how to guide the pelvis in your back bend, so really feel that action in your pelvis. Next, we're going to do leg lifts for core stabilization. Have one leg lift high and the next leg hover. Lift the shoulders and neck off the mat and keep alternating which leg lifts and which leg lowers. For an extra challenge, you can reach the block back to the ceiling and keep those shoulders plugged into the mat. The goal is to keep the lower back onto the mat, so you might need to lift your legs higher to do so. Next up is Supta Padangusthasana, so place your hands interlaced behind your thigh, and you can keep the knee bent or you can straighten the leg, but the goal here is to keep the hips neutral, so draw that hip down to reach the straight-legged hip. Cat-cow, so plant the tops of the feet into the mat, knees underneath hips, wrists underneath shoulders. Lift the sternum, draw the shoulder blades down the spine, then round the back, pull the navel into the spine. Keep doing this for about 3 to 5 breaths. Now you're going to take the spine into a nice circle here. So as you're rounding the back, you're dropping the neck, and as you're arching the back, you're reaching the chin up. And now hip circles, so you're going to drop the hips towards the mat, reach it over to the left, then to the back of the mat, then reach it around to the right. Really get into this so you can feel it on the outer edges of your hips. Next is thread the needle, so lift one hand up to the sky and thread that hand through. And then you're going to lift the other arm up to the sky, place it back down, and lift the hand back up, and do that for about 3 breaths. Next this child's pose on our fingertips. So knees wide apart, big toes to touch, and then just come up onto the fingertips. And how we can avoid overarching of the cervical spine here is by drawing the shoulder blades away from the ears. Next, we're going to take our block and place it in between our thighs and go into downward dog. Placing the block in between the thighs helps to release any clenching of the gluteal muscles, which can result into external rotation of the thighs, and that'll compress the lower back. So the goal here is internal rotation. Keeping the block in between the thighs, we're going to walk our hands back into forward fold, then walk our hands forward into plank, and then push back into downward dog. Do this about 3 to 5 times. Now we're going to work on hips and hamstrings. So lift one leg up, exhale, draw that leg through. Inhale, reach up into crescent pose. You can place your hands on your hips to see if the hips are in a neutral position. And then on your exhale, you're going to drop the hands and push that hip back to stretch out the hamstring. Inhale, coming into low lunge. Exhale, coming into splits prep. And do this cycle about 3 times. Focusing on the shoulders now, we're going to go into Garudasana, crossing one arm underneath the next. Lift the elbows to the height of your shoulders as you release the inner shoulder blades down the back. Now we're going to do some shoulder rolls, and you're going to get your thoracic spine really involved here. So create almost a wave with your shoulders and your spine. Come up onto your knees and check to see if you're sticking your booty out too much. You want to release the flesh of the butt towards the back of the knees so you can lengthen the lower back here. Lift the hands overhead, and then you're going to circle the arms down to the sides of you as you sit back onto your heels. Circling one way 3 times and then switching the direction for another 3 times. Interlace the palms at the back of the neck and let gravity drop the arms towards the floor on your exhale. Inhale, lift the chest, open the arms. So don't overarch the back here once again. You want to keep the hips neutral so the back of the pelvis goes straight down to the mat. Going back to the core, lift one leg and lift the opposite arm. You're going to draw that elbow into the knee as you engage the core, then reach back out. And you're going to do this 3 times. Then on the 3rd time, you're going to reach back around to grab the foot or the ankle, and you're going to press that foot or ankle into the palm to create a mini back bend. Draw the navel into the spine so you can engage the core so you're not dumping in the lower back and overarching. Coming onto our bellies for a dynamic cobra. Ground down through the tops of the feet. You're going to roll the inner thighs down to the mat just like we did with the block in between our legs, a down dog. And you're going to lift the quadriceps off the knees. Now, each time you lift the sternum, you're going to see if you can go a little higher. And you're going to do this for about 3 times. For this series, we're going to come into upward dog, come back into tabletop, and then drop the hips to child's pose. And do this about 3 times. Adding on from upward dog, we're going to send our hips back into downward dog, then drop the knees into tabletop, and then drop the hips back into child's pose. And do this for about 3 times. Dropping to the belly again, we're going to go into locust pose. So engage the quadriceps here, interlace the palms behind you, draw the shoulder blades down the back, and lift the sternum as you lift the legs off the floor. Do this dynamically for 3 times, and locust is a very good beginner back bending pose. So you can stay here, or if you want to progress further, we're going to go into Dhanurasana. Bend your knees and reach back to grab your ankles, and you're going to push your ankles into your palms as you roll the shoulder blades down the spine, lift the sternum, and release the tailbone towards the back of the knees. Coming to a wall, we're going to do puppy dog pose. So place the hands about shoulder distance apart, hip height, and press back until your chest is parallel with the floor. Draw the navel into the spine so that you're not overarching and you're protecting your lower back. For a deeper version, coming onto the knees and elbows, keeping the knees underneath the hips, release the chest onto the mat as you still lift the sternum forward. And you can bring the palms behind the neck here. Progressing into deeper back bends that are more challenging, and this is camel pose. So camel at the wall, you want the hips to remain on the wall so that you keep the action of releasing the inner thighs towards the back of you. Release the flesh of the butt towards the back of the knees. Lift the sternum and draw the shoulder blades down the spine. And keep reaching back as you keep the hips onto the wall. And when you are reaching back enough to release your palms to your ankle, then you can release your neck. But keep your gaze towards the top of your nose so that you're not hurting your neck here. To safely get out of this pose, you want to place your hands on your hips and release the neck back up, and then sit the hips back onto the ankles to release the lower back. To finish off, we're going to prepare for our biggest back bend, Urdhva Dhanurasana. So coming into boat pose, engaging the core here. After taking a few deep breaths, then you're going to roll down using your core and hug one knee into the chest to set up for thread the needle. Setting up for our dynamic bridge, walk the feet back in line with the hips. And we're going to do robot arms, which looks like this. And then you're going to lift the hips up and coming onto your shoulders. Roll the inner thighs down to the mat so you're not clenching the butt. And then release the vertebrae down to the mat one by one. And repeat this about 3 times. Setting up for Urdhva Dhanurasana, you're going to place the palms with the fingertips pointing towards the heels, and you're going to lift up to the crown of the head and then press up into your back bend when you're ready. So inner thighs roll down so you're not clenching the glutes here. The sternum is lifted, the action of the back bend is directed mainly into the upper chest and the mid back, not the lower back. And gently release down, keeping the butt of the flesh directing towards the back of the knee so that the lower back is still elongated. And before we go into our gentle twist, we're just going to go into a bent knee shavasana with the knees falling together, feet wide apart. Just take a few calming breaths here. And our last and final pose is a gentle twist, so have both knees fall to one side as you open the opposite shoulder and switch after taking a few deep breaths. And remember that the breath is so important when doing back bends because back bends require a lot of mindfulness. And thank you for watching my video. I hope to see you next time.